Hungry?
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. This is a pretty good Friday treat, right? Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. That clip was pretty awesome already. And of course, we have Elodie, who's joining this season as Elektra. I'm sure everyone's super excited. So for you three, what's it like, hearing the great praise from last season and then coming back for season 2?
It's pretty exciting, I guess. When we made the first season of this show, we had no idea that we'd have the kind of response that we did, and it was for about it was so fun to kind of watch that journey as people really kind of embraced the show, and it felt good for about 11 minutes, and then we found out we had to do another season, and the pressure was on to kind of like up the ante a little bit. So.
And it must be pretty intense because you're shooting, all these episodes, of course, but then they're going out at once for all those binge watchers out there. What's it like for you guys knowing that, once it's out there for good, and people can watch all 13 episodes usually per season?
Yeah, I think it's kind of exciting, actually. I think I like the idea that people can watch on their own schedule and however they like. My parents do 2 a week, you can kind of pace it out how you want. And it also means that, I think John made this point yesterday, it was really interesting, that it meant that you can actually risk losing your audience in one episode, really being a despicable human being, because you'll get them back, 5 minutes later when it flips over to the next episode.
It is nice for, fans, especially of the comic book universe, to be able to just watch it all, because you don't have to wait once a week. And let me tell you, I've seen the first episode this season, and you guys do not want to miss it. It throws you right back into this world. So tell me, Elden, about jumping back into your character. Did you feel more comfortable playing Foggy this time around?
I don't know that I ever feel comfortable in my life across the board. But no, the first day we shot on season 2, the first thing we shot was in Josie's bar, and it was 3 of us, and it felt really good. It felt like we kind of didn't miss a beat, so that sort of made me feel good about going into the rest of the season.
Yeah, you guys are kind of like the Fellowship of Hell's Kitchen. By the way, welcome to Union Square, Hell's Kitchen. So, Elodie, tell me about joining this amazing cast and how you felt your first day on set as Elektra.
I feel very privileged, really, to be part of this adventure. I was myself a big fan of the show before I even auditioned, way before I was watching it. So I already, admired these guys a lot. So, getting to know them, work with them, and getting to be Elektra was quite exciting for me, yeah.
So was it intense that first minute you found out I'm going to be Elektra? Oh my gosh, I probably have to do my own stunts. I have to get into, kick-ass shape. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was quite overwhelming. Even when I got the news, like Jeff Loeb called me and was like, okay, I'm about to tell you 3 words that are going to change your life. Welcome to Marvel. I was like, wow, game's on. So you kind of feel a bit of pressure, and yeah, getting to play such an iconic character, I don't want to disappoint anyone, and I just, immersed myself in the comics and had conversations at length with the writers and to get to know her, and just, working with these guys, it's something special, and it helped me building my character.
for all of you, it must be so exciting to be a part of this Marvel universe. And as we see with Netflix, you know, they have the Luke Cage series, Jessica Jones, The Defenders. So tell me about that and being a part of that world, and what's it like to sign on to be, you know, immersed in this universe for as long as they can have you.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're kind of discovering it as we go along. My understanding was when we did the first season that was it. We would do one season of this show, and then we would eventually they would make Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and then The Defenders. I didn't anticipate that we would do a second season of this show before we did The Defenders, at least. But I guess it makes sense because it takes so much time to make those other shows that you don't want to, you know, do one season and then miss 2 years and then come back and do the Defenders.
I also think thanks to like all you guys and everybody who watched and was so supportive, like we got to do a second season.
Oh yeah.
So tell me, Deborah, about kind of joining this Marvel universe. We all know Deborah from True Blood, of course, and we loved her there. What excited you about playing Karen, especially going into season 2, where you've already familiarized yourself with the character?
Yeah, I mean, I really like that she's an integral part of the little, I call it our Scooby Gang, you know, our sort of a little investigative team here. And, you know, I like that we can play with her character in terms of her intelligence and also the romance and also, you know, some sort of complex, controversial ideas that she has. And, yeah, just that well-roundedness is sort of rare sometimes.
And it's nice to see a strong female character
Yeah.
in this, you know, Marvel universe, which just keeps growing, man. It's so great to see like a Jessica Jones. I'm sure everyone out there was very excited to watch Jessica Jones and have these female characters on screen as well, with Elektra too. You know, tell me about being on set. The Kingpin from last season is no longer the technical villain. We have the Punisher joining us this season, played by the great John Barenthal. Tell me about that experience and seeing him on set that first day and what it felt like to actually play out the Punisher storyline. It should be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great, man. I'm really excited for people to see what John did. He's such a superb actor. Our first day, I think his first day on set and our first day together was actually a fight scene. So the first time that we got to kind of interact in any sense was basically throwing punches at each other, and which was basically the most our relationship going forward anyway. But you know, the one thing I'll say about that is that, you know, what's interesting about his role this year is that I think it's slightly less black and white as it was in the first season with a villain in Wilson Fisk. This year, Frank Castle is more of what we call an anti-hero. And one of the things the show does this year is it asks the question, you know, what is a hero? It's part of that journey is Matt having to kind of come to terms with the idea that what he's doing isn't that different from what Frank's doing, or what the Punisher is doing, and actually maybe that they're cut from the same cloth, which is an emotional upheaval for him.
How do you guys relate sort of to that? What's a hero, and what's it been like for you to kind of see this new storyline with Frank Castle?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I think, you know, obviously where Karen picks up in the second season is related directly to the extreme action that she took at the end of the first season, which is killing someone. And she did it in defense, but it also was maybe more than was necessary. And I think when Frank Castle comes into the picture, who is essentially doing what she did on a larger scale. So if people look at Frank Castle and say that he's a monster, then is that what Karen is? Or is he a hero? So I think Karen's identity is very wrapped up in the Punisher and in Daredevil and what he represents.
How about you, Elden?
You know, I mean, I was really excited to work with John because I was a big fan of his. You know, when they said he was hired to play the Punisher, I was like, I know that name. And then I looked him up, and I was like, oh, right, he's the dude that's in every movie that's coming out right now. That's why I know that guy. But, you know, for me this season, I think, you know, Foggy is still sort of struggling with the same things. You know, his idea of a hero is much different than, say, Matt's or the Punisher's, in the way that he doesn't want to do it with violence, you know. So I guess that's where Foggy's coming from this season.
And what about Elektra? Where does she come in with all of this? What can we expect? I know we're expecting her episode 2, maybe?
A bit later, yeah. She takes her time to show up.
It's a big entrance, though, yeah. Memorable.
It's a cool entrance, yeah. She doesn't have the keys of Matthew's flat, and she just gets in anyway. Yeah, well, you know, Elektra's the old flame of Matt Murdock. They met when they were younger, and I think they loved each other very deeply. So, how can I answer this, really?
Give anything away.
No, exactly. You know, she will be an emotional component, I think, to the story because of this relationship they had, and this is how you're going to be introduced to her. Like, oh, she's the old girlfriend. Then why is she coming back in Matthew's life? Then you'll have to watch it. I can't say much, but yeah, she misses Matthew a lot, I think.
Oh, guys, some juicy little details there. They're not going to give us anything, I have a feeling. Tell me about playing Daredevil. Of course, he has these extreme senses. He's an amazing fighter. What's that like for you to do? Do you do your own stunts? How do you stay in shape and prep for the role? All those good details.
Oh yeah, good question. I do more and more of the stunts as the show has continued, just purely because I'm getting better at it and I'm enjoying it more, and it's amazing what Phil Silvera is the stunt coordinator and my stunt double Chris Brewster, both extraordinary human beings. I mean, the stuff that they achieve with the budget and what we're trying and the amount of time, particularly, we don't get any time for rehearsal. I show up on the day, me and John or whoever's in the scene, we show up and Elodie as well, and we learn it there and then and try and shoot it that day or that night. And the only thing that's, I guess, interesting that people don't, when they talk about preparing for it, is that if you train for something like a marathon or you do weight training or something, the muscles that you use hurt, and you kind of get used to that. What you don't expect is when you're playing a character who gets beaten up a lot, the muscles that hurt are the ones like the back of your neck, because you're always like throwing your head back because you've just been hit, and like your joints hurt because you have to fall on the ground so often. That's the stuff that you can't really get used to. So.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I watch those fight scenes, I'm like, ow, 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 ow.
There was one of the early scenes with John. He has the scene begins with him kicking me 3 times in the ribs, and I was like, the first time we did it, I was like, he's kind of kicking me kind of hard, And I was like, I'm not gonna say anything because it's okay. And I just, I want him to feel like he doesn't have to be careful because it's, you also have to act. It has to feel real. And then we did it again, and I was like, there's a kind of a bruise there. That's getting worse. And then, and he would say to me, how you doing? You okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. You don't worry about me. You're all right. And then at the end of it, I was like, dude, you got to stop kicking the rigs, man. It's the
yeah, of course, John probably shows up like, Walking Dead, Fury, whatever else he's in. Speaking of Walking Dead, I mean, come on. I wish he was here so I could just be like, Walking Dead, tell me. What's it like to slip into that suit? That seems pretty tight.
Yeah. Very clever. It's actually really, I hear from other superheroes, because we all communicate. I hear that they're often very uncomfortable to wear. Mine is actually, this one is not. The suit premiered at the end of last episode of the first season, and there was just some teething problems we had to work out, which we were able to work out in this season. And the cool thing about doing it over 13 hours is we got to kind of work that into the storyline, make sense of it, and make it part of the narrative. But yeah, it's actually very. Initially I needed 2 or 3 people to help me put it on. Now I can do it myself, so I feel very grown up. And no, it's great. It's fun. The only problem is, because of security reasons, I put it on in the room or the trailer, and I feel badass. But then to get to set, because of the security reasons, I have to wear a dressing gown over it, and I have to walk through the streets to these high-rise, these like rooftops in like a dressing gown with these cool red bits, but and I don't feel so cool. So.
You're like. What's it like shooting in New York, Deborah? It must be pretty cool to be in, you know, one of the best cities in the world. Although they don't call it New York, they call it Hell's Kitchen, as I said before.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are things about shooting here that you could never, ever recreate in a soundstage. I remember talking with Jeff Loeb, and he talked about a scene where, because you can't close off the streets in New York, we just have to shoot around it. And he said this, in the back of the conversation, there were just taxi cabs, yellow cabs going by at full speed. And that is something you can't pay 50 taxis to just keep driving around a block on a set. It's the only thing that you can get. And the number of times we'll be in Josie's, which is just this little bar somewhere, you know, and like a real ambulance will go by and there are sirens, and we just have to work that into the story. You have to just talk louder and pretend that you're really in New York, because you really are in New York, and that happens. So a little flavor like that, I think, really adds to it.
I know, I was watching the first episode and there's a scene, I mean, your bromance is back, your relationship, you're tight. You guys are walking down the street, and I'm like, all these people, are those extras? Or are they just walking down the street being like, hey, look, Daredevil set?
They're just people walking down the street. Yeah, it's especially this season. I think it's been strange for me anyway, because you know, you sort of be shooting a scene, and then I'll check some Instagram or something, and there's a picture of Charlie and I walking down the street, and, you know, and it's just like, it's really weird. But I have to say, shooting in New York is dope. I mean, it's awesome.
Well, I'm sure, too, people might notice you with all those crazy fans from the Hunger Games.
You know, it's funny, actually, when I don't have the beard, people, you know, recognize me from Daredevil. When I do have the beard, people think I'm Tyler Labine. So that's cool.
Like, hello, thank you. I mean, we talked about his costume. How about yours? Tell us, what was that like, slipping into that? I know you've done some action movies. Gods of Egypt just came out recently. G.I. Joe. So what was it like to get back into that action world and slip on the Elektra costume?
Anytime I do, you know, an action movie, this is where I actually work out. So I'm like, oh, okay, let's go back and train now, because I'm quite lazy other than that. So it's really my workout. And slipping in these costumes, you know, it's just, you just really do feel badass. Even with the robe on, I feel still good, you know, under it. I was a bit worried that I had to, you know, to wear the red bikini, and as you say, we are shooting in New York, and we do a lot of nights, and we do shoot during winter, so I was quite happy to have pants on, really. And I really feel like Elektra when I'm in. Elektra in her killing mode, you know? Yeah, the costume, the size, and I'm good to go, yeah.
Are you excited to kind of, you know, get the chance to work with Kristen Ritter and you know, Mike and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and the Defenders? What are you looking forward to kind of bouncing in between I'm sure all of you could make appearances in any of the series.
I mean, I'm really excited about it. I love Jessica Jones. I really enjoyed the show, and what I'm interested to see tonally how the worlds combine, because the two shows felt very different, and I'm sure Luke Cage will also have its own style and its own tone. So I'm interested to see how they go about combining us all, and what that story will be. I mean, I have no idea, but I think it's going to be great.
I think everyone's really excited, right, to see all that crossover.
Can we also sort of make a shout out for like how cool and diverse the Defenders are? Like, I just think that's really cool in this day and age.
I mean, it's so cool to see all these superhero movies, yet every single one, and shows, every single one has their own vibe and tone. And can you guys kind of go down the line and name your favorite superhero?
We're starting that end, right?
That's so easy. It's you, my dear. You're my favorite superhero, of course.
I love you, bro, but Iron Man is my favorite superhero. Iron Man.
Iron Man. Favorite superhero? Yeah, Daredevil. Of course.
You know, I mean, obviously Daredevil, but if I can't say Daredevil, it's kind of the obvious one, really. But Spider-Man. I just think Spider-Man.
He's always a good one.
Yeah.
And of course, we do have the old Daredevil, Ben Affleck, as the new Batman, and I'm sure everyone's super excited for that. So kind of being in this humongous superhero phase of Hollywood, Kind of touch on that a little bit, being a superhero yourself and in a superhero series. Do you think it's kind of exploded? Do you think it will ever get old?
Well, you know, some people talk about these superhero shows and movies being like a genre, and I think that's not true. I think the shows are so diverse, they're so different. You know, if you take, for example, Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, it's a completely different tone, feel of film than, you know, Captain America: Winter Soldier, say. Similarly, our show is very, very different from Jessica Jones, and also, you know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter and those shows. So it's almost like what they try to do with this show, which I think was really smart, is to make sure that the quality of the show doesn't rely on the superhero element, so that the show survives as a crime drama. It survives because of the characters and the relationships, and it's really a character-driven show. And the superhero element is just kind of sprinkled on top. It's like a bonus. And if you get that right, if you succeed, then there's no limit to how many of these shows you can make, because it's just, you know, another aspect to it.
It's kind of nice that it's a television series. You don't have to really rely on the movie part of it. How do you feel that's changed, Daredevil? What would Daredevil look like if it was just you guys in a movie rather than, a series?
I mean, obviously you can delve deeper into the characters and the story. But I also think, and this is purely from a business standpoint, when you make a movie, you have to make all of your money back. So in a way, it has to be kind of a sure thing. Whereas with TV, and especially networks like Netflix, it's sort of already all paid for. So we get to be a little riskier. We get to take more risks, because it's not like if it isn't popular, they've lost a lot. Now, luckily, we were very popular thanks to all of you, and so it's a success, and we get to take even more risk.
So give us a few, before I head to the audience for some questions, give us a few things that we can expect this season to look out for. Because we have until next week. Yeah.
I didn't even read the scripts. You might want to ask someone else.
Are you one of those people who only reads your part and then just skips over?
I don't even read my part. I just wing it when I get there.
How about you? Maybe share a little bit.
Well, I'm a bit like Elden, but I'm going to make an effort. Because you passed it on to me. In this season, I think what the writers really managed to do is to carry on with developing Daredevil journey, and so we keep this. We have this noyau, this group here, and the relationship between Karen and Matthew, and between Foggy and Matthew are getting deeper. So fan won't be disappointed with this. But they also introduced the Punisher and Elektra, who are two really wide elements, and these guys are going to kind of force Matthew to question himself and his behavior. And so, have I answered your question? A lot is going on in these seasons, but it's going to be a bit darker, I think, and quite interesting, the dynamic between all the characters.
We can definitely expect some awesome fight scenes, right?
Yeah. There's good. I mean, those guys, the job that they're doing is really extraordinary. There's a fight scene in the first season that obviously went down quite well, which is at the end of the second episode. There's a hallway fight scene, which some of you guys have seen. Yeah. So when the scripts began to come in, one of the earlier scripts came in, and I read it, and at the end there's this sequence that has been written, and I remember reading it and going, okay, all right, so they're going to try and we're going to try and redo this. We're going to try and up the ante here, it was a nerve-wracking thing to acknowledge, because maybe just don't touch that. Maybe just leave that as it is. And we did this scene, and it's kind of like, the way I like to think of it now, it's kind of an homage to that scene in series 1. It's almost like it's that scene. One of the ways I've described it is it's like that scene on crack. So it's like crazy. But I've seen it, and it's really cool. It's really cool.
It must be so cool to see the comic books come to life, even on the script, and then for you guys to act it out. Must be exciting. I know we're all looking forward to watching it. But I want to open it up to all of you guys. There's a ton of fans out here, so if you have questions, raise your hand.
We're going to start with a question from an online viewer. So Kathy would like to know for each of you, what is your favorite line from the series that your character says?
Can it be from either series? The one that my friends text me the most is the line was, "That sounds pretty bad, but I don't speak asshole."
I kind of like what a potty mouth Karen is, and there's this wonderful line. I'm gonna forget the beginning of it, but something about like not swimming, like swimming in shit and not getting any of it in your mouth or something. I was like, I just love that they give this to like the blonde secretary. It's great.
I think a lot of Foggy's lines are my favorite because they're so weird. He kind of talks a lot like an old man. Like he says things like, "We need to load for bear if we're gonna take on these clients," you know, and it's like, I don't know who really talks like that. I guess Foggy, you know. So pretty much all my dialogue is my favorite.
Like Yosemite Sam.
Exactly.
I'm going to drop the ball here. I'm so sorry. I have a very, very bad memory. And also, script is in English, so it kind of goes away as soon as I learn it. But I'm so sorry.
It's fine. They'll forgive you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I wanted to ask, since we've spoken about Jessica Jones, the last season of Jessica Jones, we saw like undertones of mentions of slightly of Daredevil. So I wanted to know, will Jessica Jones be making an appearance in this season?
Unfortunately, we can't answer that question.
I feel like all that's over them right now is just spoiler.
Yeah. Huh? Also, can't answer that question. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you.
But guys, if they can't answer it, that might mean it's true. So you.
But you know, I mean, just to kind of give you something, rather than just say we can't answer that question. You know, the idea is, as you will know, the guys who have seen Daredevil and Jessica Jones will know that there are certain elements to the show which are through lines, that they do touch all of the shows, and obviously Rosario Dawson's character Claire Temple is the obvious example of that. She's in many ways she is the common element, and what was quite fun was that while we were shooting Daredevil season 2, they were shooting Luke Cage season 1, and there was a scene I had with Rosario, and you know, she showed up. And we started rehearsing, and then we went into hair and makeup, and she came back and she had this cut on her face. And I was like, what? Because that wasn't part of anything that in the scripts of our story. And I was like, why is this here? And she was like, well, technically in the story, 2 days ago, I was doing this in Luke Cage, and this is a leftover from that moment. And I just remember thinking, one, very, very cool. Two, whose job is it to keep a tab on all that? Because that is like, the continuity of that is like
That's like the script supervisor for every.
Yeah.
It's probably just like, oh crap.
Hi everyone, Deborah. I'm a huge fan of yours, so I'm so happy to see you here. But my question is for Elodie. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Very well. Thank you.
Could you describe like what fighting techniques you had to learn? Like, what's your fighting style for the course of the season, and will your suit also have like evolution, like similar to Daredevil in the first season? Like, will you have a different one? Is what I'm trying to say.
So, what were the fight sequences and the costume? Sorry, I couldn't really hear you.
What kind of fighting styles did you have to learn, like, to play Elektra, and then will your suit change during the course of the season?
Yeah, well, you know, the suits, I think it's exactly as you said, you know, in the first season, you see an evolution in Daredevil's costume, and it's pretty much the same, you know. At first, she needs to be efficient, and she's quite casual in her outfit, and then it gets more and more serious, and so you'll see an evolution in the costume. You know, we wanted Elektra to be a badass killer, and I have practiced karate in my life. I'm a black belt, which is, you know,
cool.
it's something, but Elektra would definitely kick my ass. So I needed really to learn new skills. So in the choreographies, we had, you know, different styles. Really, we've imagined that she trained at absolutely every kind of martial arts. So if you like martial arts, you'll pick up things. You know, you'll see that she does. We have some Muay Thai movements and some karate and some. I don't know, like there's some Krav Maga. I think at some point we have some boxing. We have a bit of everything. It's a good mixture of everything. But what really I had to really learn and master was to manipulate the size. And because, you know, Elektra in her costume without her size, that wouldn't make sense, really. So I really needed to learn that. And it's tricky, you know, it's like having two big forks and she's like, yeah, go and kill people with it. It's a skill, so I had to learn this. And you know, as Charlie said, we were surrounded by an amazing stunt team. Lauren Kim, who's my stunt double, we worked really hand in hand on every single choreography, and she helped me a lot, and she was amazing. So that's it. Yeah. That was the program. That's what I had.
Yeah, that's it. I'm exhausted just thinking about all the
just
work.
Just saying it, I'm exhausted.
It seems fun, but it seems like a lot of work. So kudos to you guys. I think we have time for one more question.
Hi guys, how are you doing? I'm a little nervous right now, but it's super cool to be able to talk to you and everything. You know, there are a lot of actors out there that are willing to do like an amazing job like you guys. So really, it's really cool what you guys are doing. And my question, in a representation of all the actors out there, is what do you guys advise them if they have an accent or like, you know, to go out there and do their thing?
If they have an accent?
Yeah, if they have an accent, because like me, for example, I am willing to like do some work as an actress too. So, but I have an accent and it's pretty strong. And I see that, for example, you have an accent and it's great. It sounds great. Like you look.
Your accent sounds great to me. It's beautiful.
But yeah, but there are like a lot of people out there, you know, willing to be actors too, and they feel sometimes that their accent might be a little, you know, a limitation or something. So, what is your advice?
I'd say that, you know, like anything. For me, I can only speak for myself. I try to work on it as I try to work on any skills, because I think it's part of being an actor. You know, learn how to whatever, play tennis. You know, work on your accent. It's just maybe just trying to put some effort in working on your RP or your American. But I think, you know, you should also go to the auditions just as you are, and then try to bring who you are as well on the table, because I think that's also part of the job. Charlie, you have an accent. I mean, we all do.
I was just thinking that's a fantastic question, you know, and especially for a British actor. You know, I grew up in London and I have a lot of British friends, and there comes a point in our career early on where it becomes apparent that you really need to work on your accent. For us, it's often an American accent. If we want to be in any way considered for an American job, you have to be able to do a passable accent. And some people, it's a crazy art. Some people can just bang, they do it. You know, they can listen to it. My flatmate, the guy I lived with in London, not an actor, but any accent, he can just do it like that. He can think about it and do it. Me, the complete opposite. I have to work so hard. And like Elodie said, it's a myth. A lot of people think, I can either do accents or I can't. And I really don't believe that to be the case. There was a period of time in my life where I was trying to work in Los Angeles and I couldn't get a job because every job I went for, people were like, his accent's not good enough. It's just not good enough. And then I got a job playing an Irish guy, which is also for a British, it's for anyone. It's that Northern Irish is a tough accent. And I decided to do something which is potentially, sometimes in the acting world, is considered a little bit, you know, extreme, but I decided to stay in that accent for about a month. It's just every shop I went to, everyone I spoke to, my friends got so frustrated with me. But I just stayed in the accent, and I, you know, what happens is it begins to no longer be an accent. It starts to get into your bones, you know what I mean? But it really is about the time. It's about drilling the sounds over and over again, working with voice coaches, working with people, listening to, I download podcasts from people of a certain area. Like you go on a podcast and you find priests, for example, you know, priests from churches in certain parts of the country or certain parts of the world. They're great to download because they speak coherently. You can understand what they're saying. And they're also from that region, you know, so it's authentic. And I would just listen to these priests and repeat them. In fact, when I was doing this show, Boardwalk Empire, I found out halfway through filming that a lot of the crew thought that I was very, very religious. because I was walking around with my earphone in and I was repeating these sermons. to myself. And I remember like some of the cast and people would come up and like over lunch and occasionally would engage me in conversation and be like, so what do you think about the book according to Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount? And I'd be like, yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Sounds pretty awesome. And I had no idea until someone told me. But it's like great. Sorry to sidetrack. Great question, and I really believe it's just about the work. It's hard work. Yeah.
So do you speak in your American accent when you're on the Daredevil?
On set, I do. Yeah, right. Most of the
Yeah,
time
you
on
do,
set,
you
I do.
do.
Yeah, and that's partly because I want to be in practice. It's also partly a security thing. It's kind of weird if I speak to these guys in my accent, and then they roll camera, and I suddenly go into my American accent. I feel self-conscious because I feel like it suddenly sounds odd in my head, and I feel self-conscious. Whereas if I've been doing it all day, these guys don't bat an eyelid. It's just happening. You know what I mean? And it just makes me feel less self-conscious. Is the reason. Yeah.
Well, you're great in the show. All of you are great in the show, and I know we're all looking forward to seeing season 2, which comes out next Friday, March 18th. All the episodes. Thank you guys so much for being here.